Well, hello there, welcome to Bad Builds, where sometimes a class just doesn't work. So, today I want to talk about the problem with the monk. So, you might have ever sat there and thought to yourself, I really do like the monk class. But it's a little bit weird that the monk is this, The problem with the monk is that the monk doesn't make sense in D&D, because it's this sudden oriental... Like, think about the classes. You got your fighter, okay, that's your knight guy. You got your barbarian, okay, that's your regular-ass dude who lives in the woods. You got your forest guy, you got your other forest guy, you got your thievy guy, you got your... Oh, I cast a spell! And then there's the other, I cast a spell! Where the heck does the monk fit in? Suddenly there's places that train warrior monks specifically with ki. Ki never gets brought up anywhere else, does it? There's no spells involving ki. There's nothing. They just sort of exist in their own plane of existence, where suddenly people can basically become psionic, training their brains to do all kinds of cool shit. So it's entirely possible that you're going to end up in a campaign where you can't use monks, or you just don't want to be that kind of monk. You don't want to be an Oriental monk. You don't want to be slightly insulting to a culture that has basically embraced it by now. You can say what you want, but they know. They know. I would go know if they know. So I wrote some up because I like writing these stuff. It makes me feel good about myself. I should probably start writing my goddamn report instead, but whatever. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. The big thing is, why not just be a fighter? If you want to be the cool guy who does the cool combat techniques, just, like, here's the important thing that comes over here. This is done mostly from a Pathfinder perspective because at some point I'm going to have to start talking about mechanics because this is kind of a mechanical thing. It's still true in 5e. You need to take the monk and fix it! Because the monk is still this weird class that exists in a weird, like, like, what is a monk, really? What is a monk? When you think about it, a monk is one of two things. A monk is a guy that just really knows how to punch things. Or a monk is somewhat magical. But instead it has ki. So why not go with that other route? I don't say, okay, your monk is either pure physical, or your monk is some sort of magical controller guy. Well, the funny thing is, a lot of people forget that monk also means the guy in the cloister, who can also just be a kick-ass fighting guy. So let's start off with the fighter. As the idea, just, you're a fighter. You can easily ask your GM, listen, can I sacrifice some bonus feats or some action surges or what have you for unarmed damage increases? Or maybe that's your weapon. Maybe your weapon is just your unarmed damage. And suddenly, bada bing, bada bada boom, you have a warrior monk. You also get more flexibility, because you're not restricted to, these are the things a monk can do. A monk can fall slowly. A monk can punch a lot of things. What if you want to be a different kind of monk? What if you want feats that let you sprawl your wings and get skills all over the place? Like, you can do acrobatics all the way from here to Timbuktu. Or you're a thief. I don't know. You can do that with the feats you get out of this guy. You take your combat feats just to stay a little bit combat heavy. But the amount of bonuses you get out of this in Pathfinder is incredible. Like, the fighter is flexible and dangerous if you know what you're doing with it. And people are like, well, wizards are quadratic. Well, maybe, but a wizard runs out of spells, and if you enforce proper days, wizard's gonna lose out at some point, because he doesn't have any... He's reliant on, like, magical items to kick him back up to speed. The fighter, however, is the guy who can just do whatever he wants. Now, with the fighter, what you can also do, take feats that, like, just throw shit. Say, in Call of Cthulhu, you fight with the environment, like you're supposed to take bottles and smash them and throw chairs and throw tables into barricades. Try to do the same thing. What if your character just doesn't have a weapon? Like, they fight unarmed, they brawl their way through combat, but they also just take random shit that's around them and just smash people's heads in with it. They throw bottles all the way across the room, they take regular cutting knives and flick them at people. Like, that's awesome. Isn't that so much cooler than the guy who punches things really hard? Like, suddenly you have a much cooler... Also, you have more proficiencies. You can use more weapons. You can be a monk that has a big fuck sword, but at the same time can take that sword away and you can still punch your ass, just... Hey, wouldn't that be great? Unfortunately, you're also not as magical and whimsical. You're kind of, hello. Now, the Bard. You might say, why the Bard? Well, I put it really nice. The Bard gives you some magical spell potential. Like, you get a couple of cool spells, you get some illusions, you get some fun stuff. Why not implement that? Why not implement Monk as the person who fights dirty? Like, a good monk, a self-reflective person, is aware of their environment and will use it to their advantage. They're not just constantly punching things. They're aware. They know their environment, they know how to manipulate it, they know what to do at any given moment. It's going to be taxing on your GM to describe the environment in sufficient detail that you can really do something with it. But imagine what you could do with it, though. Imagine the kind of fun scenes you can get out of this. Where your character, like, in the middle of a negotiation, just flicks a knife. And a guy gets hit in the eye, and then, poop, grease puddle appears. And everyone slips and falls as your team makes a getaway. That's awesome. The Bard could do that normally, but that's the flavor. Bad Builds is about flavor. It's about putting a little bit of pepper, a little bit of spice on things, not focusing on the down low. No, I gotta confess one thing. I kind of like monk classes. I like the idea of a character that self-actualizes them. Like, I don't like the bard. I think the bard comes with way too much baggage. You get the bardic performance, you get the bardic knowledge, you get way too much stuff that no one cares about. 90% of the people don't care. They're just like, I want to get a fighter that can also do some magic. Bada bing, bada boom. I can do cure magic. Pow. Which is why I think there should be way more archetypes that get rid of the bardic performance part. Because too many people think, I'm a bard, so I'm a bard. Get that out of your head. Here at Bad Builds, we don't see the fighter as the fighter. The fighter can be a monk. He can be a guy that sits in robes and just punches things really hard, and takes feats that augment that, or takes abilities and items that augment that. I say a bard can be a monk. Maybe he just sings. Maybe the singing is like part of his mantra. Like, it's how he coaxes energies around him into forming what he needs him to be. Maybe the grease is like that magical thing they do in Avatar, where it's like, the ground is now water. Woo! That's not what they do in Avatar, but you could imagine that'd be awesome. Like, the people in Avatar don't do the wall jumping stuff. They're much more sorcerers, and no one's going to be like, Aang's not a monk. But he does sorcery more than anything. He doesn't even do cool hand-to-hand combat. He just fight with a staff. I guess that's still a monk thing. But most people, when they go monk, they don't go with the staff. I don't know why. Why not? Why don't people go with the cool monk weapons, like the sais? Like, most people go, I want to punch things. And it's like, I guess why? It's because if you're going to use a sword or a quarterstaff, you might as well be a fighter. But if that's the only thing that makes you say, I don't want to pick a monk, then what the fuck are you doing? You're missing out on so much cool shit. Like, oh, but I get slowful. Yeah, when the hell does that come in useful? You already got a wizard behind you who can cast Featherfall on a moment's notice. You don't need that guy. You don't need that to have that feature. Oh, but I can hit things with magic. Yeah, but so can anyone with a magic weapon, or a magic tool, or spells. Seriously, man. Think about it. And as a bard, you're flexible. You get all these cool skills. Like, you're self-actualizing. You are reaching your potential. You know magic, you know how to fight, you know skills, you know social skills. You are trying to become the perfect person more than an actual goddamn monk! What can a monk do? A monk can fall slowly. Whee! What can a bard do? He can literally talk to you and make you think that you're his friend. Damn! That's impressive. What can a monk do? Well, a monk can punch one extra time. What can a bard do? Well, a bard doesn't even have to get into combat, because he uses his perfectly fine-tuned brain to read what someone wants, and then using his mind's eye is able to tell him exactly what he feels like. The only downside is, jack of all trades, master of none. The monk isn't even that specialized, which is kind of the weirdest part about everything. The monk classes tend to be not specialized, like maybe for melee combat, but that's it, and it's like, really? But that's the fighter spiel, isn't it? Like, what are you really doing different? Now, the cleric. Now, again, you could just be the monk. The monk. The guy that sits in a room and then decides, you know what, one day I'm going to start beating on shit. Or maybe your powers aren't, like, divine. Maybe there's just a god that says, listen, if you just meditate and focus on self-actualization, bada bing, bada boom, there's your powers. Use them well, kiddo. And he just pats you on the head, goes a little pat-pat. And then expects you to do whatever you want. Now, the benefit of this is you get so many spells, and you just get to pick them. Like, every day you get to focus your mind. You sit in meditation and you try to reach out into the cosmos, taking powers from the cosmos that you can then manifest over time. Like, you've already taken them, which is how your preparation works. Is you ahead of time you pick the powers that you want to take with you for that day. You align yourself cosmically with the spinning wheels of the universe, knowing exactly what to do. But it takes the whole goddamn time, so you can't switch on the fly. The bard has a list of spell knowledge, just like the things he's learned over the years. Here, you need to align yourself with the universe to do it. Like, you can be a cleric. Like, here's the thing. The biggest problem is that a cleric, that your GM is going to say, but you gotta pick a god. And I'm going to say, no, listen, GM. Listen, GM. I'm going to pick you up by the scruff of your neck. I'm going to drag you through. Let's just drag you through the mud, okay? Let's do that one more time. Let's drag you through the mud. Because here's the thing. Here at Bad Builds, your class ain't your character. Hey. And want to know why? Because it's so much more fun. If you don't see bard as, I'm a bard, I make music, but you see it as a person who just happens to tell cool stories, and people are like, oh man, that story's so goddamn cool. It's sort of like Dark Souls does it, you know? Like, see it as a skill set. You're not a fighter. What would you be? Maybe you're a duelist. Like, you're focused on, like, dueling. Maybe you're not even that. Maybe all those combat feats are just, you're lucky. You managed to make do. Like, you've learned to brawl over the years, and you just happen to be good at fighting. But in reality, what you're really good at is, like, running and jumping and all that kind of stuff, because you have to run away from people all the damn time because you owe them so much money. Like, give it some thought. How does your sorcery work? Is your sorcery you just say abracadabra, and you hold out your hand, a little abracadabra comes out. Yay, an abracadabra happened. Or do you take a little, like you have an ink jar, and you take a brush and you go put it in and go whoosh, whoosh, and you draw a symbol in the air, a la Okami, and bam, magic comes out. Maybe your magic is that you have to put your hands like on your temples and have to sort of rub the energies into place. Maybe it's like that. Maybe every single day you take you take a scroll out of your pocket, and on that scroll is just a cosmic map a la Elder Scrolls. And whenever you cast a spell, you have to hold up that scroll for a moment to let the energies pour out that you've pushed in. Wouldn't that be cool? Like, your character doesn't just... Like, what else could you do? You could do stuff like bones. Like, just color it up a bit. Maybe you don't have a spell book. Maybe the way you gather your energies. Maybe the way you learn spells, you inscribe them into your flesh. Like, you have a little strip of flesh somewhere in your body. Like, I'm going to put my spells here. And your wound heals, but your body remembers the pain. And there's just layers of scars. And every time you cast a spell, you make a little cut. Not enough to damage you. Make a little cut and you spray the blood. And the blood becomes magic. Because all those tiny scars have turned your blood into a semi-magical portent. Wouldn't that be so goddamn radical compared to I have a spell book and I'm going to cast a spell. I will cast a spell. Abracadabra. You make a little hand gesture. Like, as long as the mechanics stay the same, you can color it as you like, and it makes you scary. Like, wouldn't it be so much easier to have an intimidation roll if your character sprays blood to attack? It would be less impressive if you make calligraphy drawings in the air or something like that. Or if the way you do magic is you have two metal bars and you clang them together and then rub them a certain way, and magical energies to spark off as the two flints connect. That's so much cooler. Isn't that cooler? It's cooler. Think about it. But yeah, you're a cleric. Clerics tend to be somewhat fightery. They tend to have decent combat skills because they're not complete casters. And as a result, you can use them perfectly fine for this. You can have a little bit of punch, a little bit of spazzazzle, a little bit of death, this, a little bit of that. Good dodge, left, weave white, right? Like, who says a monk can't wear armor? Who says a monk just can't wear a little plate mail underneath everything else? Like, maybe he's not that fast. He just has armor, and for the rest, he just punches things. Like, that's the thing that gets me so much, is not only are you the guy that punches things, you're the guy that runs, the guy that jumps, the guy that falls slowly, the guy that has no armor. Like, you're such a pigeonholed character. What is a bard? Well, a bard can tell stories, he can play a musical instrument, he can just forgo all that and focus on his magics. What is a fighter? Well, maybe he hits things very well, but maybe he shoots a bow. Maybe he just knows many weapons and improvises his way through every combat. What's a cleric? Maybe he worships a god, maybe he doesn't worship a god. Maybe he steals spells from the gods with he's a little assistant that jumps off into the spirit realm and says, I'm going to steal some spells. Wouldn't that be great? What is a monk? The same thing over and over again, because the monk is pigeonholed more than any other class, really. Like, what classes is pigeonholed? Not even the wizard. The wizard can give some flavor, some spice, some pepper. But the monk, you have to, you have to get away from it to spice it up. Like, you get a lot of stuff, but it immediately says, this is what your character is. What do you get to pick as a monk? You get some bonus feats, but they're all like these straightforward, this is a monk thing. Not to mention the fact that the 3.5, the monk regular, is so garbage. Oh, it's so mad. It's multi-ability dependent, in case you wonder. Ugh. Not even sad. Sad is great. Sad is just too much, because then you can just... Wizards are sad. Technically, they're tad, because they're 2 ability dependent, dexterity, intelligence, and everything else, just fuck it. But yeah, the cleric, you can do so much with it. Alright, like, think about this. The cleric is wisdom, right? So what if your guy's wisdom is like, they're just the wise monk. They're the wise monk. Their spells are because they are wise and they are attuned with the universe. They can heal you because they rub your wound a certain way. They use, I guess I have to go back to it. They use ki energy, like they know how ki works, like they perform acupuncture to heal your wounds. It's not a cure spell like, lay on hands. No, they just do the special medical thing. And it just takes a certain amount of mental energy to prepare themselves for it. Like, the exhaustion of spells is not the losing of spell power, but them exhausting their mental energies to do so. Think about it. Now, the barbarian. This is a neat one. So, barbarians have this battle trance where they become tougher and stronger. Why can't that just be a battle trance instead of them getting angry? Like, give it some pepper, give it some spice. What happens to them is they enter a battle trance. They are trained monks, and when they enter battle, they go into a meditative, just focus mode. Focus. Everything about them is honed to battle, honed to hit things, honed to fight, honed to dodge, beck, weave, absorb blows. Now, the downside is the barbarian is, again, a little bit pigeonholed, because you really get this straight set of powers, but the barbarian, you can color it a bit, although it's kind of limited as to how you can color it. Maybe you're possessed. Maybe you're not even in a battle trance. You're literally possessed by something. Like, you don't become angry, you're possessed by something. Maybe it's you're panicked and you're fearful and you just freak out. Like, something extreme happens and it upsets you. Maybe you're just jubilant. Maybe it's not even anger. You're just so joyous that you can't focus anymore. And as a monk, you can just say, it's a battle trance. My character is a barbarian, but he's also a monk. He hits things. You get the same running fast thing. You have reflexes against traps and all that cool stuff. You have natural survival skills. You're just a monk that is attuned to nature and knows if I punch a bear hard enough and I just kick his ass with a big axe, he'll go away. But you might say, but an axe is not a monk weapon. I'm pretty goddamn sure that most monks that live in cloisters didn't really complain about the kind of weapon they had. Pretty sure they wouldn't complain about that. But they're No, listen, man. Man, there's a... You'd be surprised, like, You'd be surprised, you'd be surprised, man. Like, there are people out there who say, you know, teaching Kung Fu for self-defense, it's not as useful as you think it is. Like, there's a reason why people started using weapons instead of their own fists. Like, sure, your fists are strong, but, you can't use your fist to stop a sword. The sword's gonna lob your hand off. There's a reason things went the way... Can you punch through metal? No! Because that's not how your hand works. That's not how your bones work, and your skin, and your flesh. You can't punch through a metal shield. Like, that's kind of the thing that gets me about Monk. Monk is pigeonholed into you have to be this, and most people will go for that, even though it doesn't really work or make sense. And but you might say, it's fantastical. Yeah, but they use ki, and nothing else uses ki. Like, everything is applied to be somewhat magical or have this certain focus to them. Like like what fuels the barbarians? Just rage, just pure anger. They have a special type of emotional state in which they become more potent because they focus on it. And you could say, well, that's the monk, right? Yes. But the monk has this weird, like, attached... Oh, by the way, it's also this Middle Eastern stuff. This Eastern stuff. This is mostly me complaining about monks. Because I really feel that monks should be reworked. A little bit more thematically reworked into something more flexible, something more different. Like, maybe just make them the Brawler. But that doesn't sound as cool. Well, fuck it. Like, why not make the monks... Give them a casting archetype. Or something like that. Like, they're the cleric fighter. Like, make clerics less fightery and make the cleric fighter the monk. Wouldn't that be cool? Like, if you're a monk, you have divine inspiration. You have access to these amazing powers because you're in tune with the cosmos. That's where your powers come from. And then you turn fast movement and slow fall into things they can just cast. Bada bing, bada motherfucking boom. Like, make it even more interesting than that. Make the monk be able to align themselves. Like, they have X spell slots per day. They have 5 spell slots. And then they can use those slots for passives. They can say, well, today I'm going to pick Slow Fall. Now, Slow Fall goes into a spell slot, but it's not a castable. It's just all day you have that until your next rest. Isn't that great? Like, suddenly you can say, okay, I want a lot of passives. I want my character to not have... But then the actives are great. Like, the passives are They're kind of small. They don't stack. They're all over the place. They take up multiple slots. Like, if you want to get the unarmed attack flurry of blows, you're going to have to sacrifice 3 slots to do it. But you get so much flexibility with your character. It'd be a heck to balance, though. That'd be painful to balance. But it would work so neat. It would have such more celestial feeling to it. Like, you're a monk. You meditate. You focus on life, on yourself, on the world around you. You're perfection incarnate. Naturally, you'd have to get there eventually. And then the ultimate upgrade is that every passive costs 1 less point. I don't know. Wouldn't that be more interesting than you get all these abilities and that's it? But then again, 5e is just 90%. You don't really get to pick. You don't really get to pick. Don't fool yourself. I want you to come really close and tell me that you're fooling yourself. Because here's the thing. I'm not going to say anything about 5e, but I'm going to say this. At the end of the day, your role-playing potential is dependent on how much you're willing to not min-max your character and play the character itself. The more you focus on, I'm going to pick this number because it makes my character better, that's not how that works. You know what I did today? I picked a feat for one of my characters where they do 2 more damage with a weapon. They're a fighter. It's the logical thing to pick, you might say. You just pigeonhole them. No. What I did is, I picked it because he just lost a friend. And he picked that feat because he lost someone, and he's angry, and he hits things harder because he feels like he has to try harder. No. Isn't that a much better way to look at things? Because suddenly you have character development. Like, what developed? Well, he just lost someone, and he realizes the fragility of life. And with that knowledge of fragility, can hit things harder. I don't know, man. This is a ramble. I need more questions. I need more suggestions for what to do. Or I might do another just stream. Oh, man. That... Oh. Whew. Man. Man.